Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for the Netflix film Leave the World Behind. There's no going back to normal. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things geek-centric. Joining me for this apocalyptic size review are two dudes that I would happily be stuck in a house with while the world ends. Maybe. I don't know. I'm joined by Nate Shelton, Kevin Hudson. How are you guys?
Oh, man. Justin, it's like you're always stuck in second gear, you know, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year, you know? You know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure. I'm not getting that reference, but
okay. Clearly you're not a fan then.
Of what?
Oh, boy. Jeez.
Wow.
This is the one.
Wow.
This is the one where Justin doesn't get it, Nate.
The one where Justin doesn't get it.
I see. It's a Friends quote. Oh, very clever. Very clever. This is the one.
All right, keep going.
Kevin
keep moving on.
Okay, well, with that out of the way, speaking of Friends, which ironically has, a very relevant point to this story. Again, spoiler free. We won't get into details about it, but it did have me thinking. For you guys, I would love to know. Is there a TV show that is just your go-to, your thing that is just like comfort? You'll always watch, and you get the good vibes from? Kev, how about you? I know you're a big TV guy.
For years and years after it went off the air, I was rocking the rewatches of The Office. I am still dead set, hell bent on getting to like a global Office trivia championship. I think I could keep up with the biggest fans in the world on that show. I've seen it so many times. But lately, if I was only going to be able to watch one show on repeat, sort of like it's just my go-to, I love it. I'm slapping on Parks and Rec whenever I can. I love that show. It's like my favorite feel-good show. The characters and their arcs and just the little moments are pitch perfect constantly.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Nice. How about you, Nate?
I think for me, oh man, anything animated Star Wars. So Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch. I think I noticed this most recently. At Thanksgiving, I was with the family, and my cousins just had a random episode from season 5 on. And I asked them, like, what season is that? Like, we don't know. We just clicked the button and hit play. But it's funny because I sat down and, like, even joining halfway through the episode, I must have sat and watched like 4 episodes in a row with them just without even meaning to. I just think the way that the stories are just they're small, 2 to 3 episode arcs for the majority of that series of Clone Wars specifically. I just think it's really nice in small sittings. So it's like if I'm going to sit down for a meal or watch something and I've got nothing else that I'm kind of currently watching, I'll just throw some animated Star Wars on and I'll just feel safe, and at home. So.
Yeah, well, Friends is clearly not the one that I'm going to choose, but I will go with
apparently
another famous '90s sitcom, Seinfeld. I don't know how many times I've ever been able to put that on and not just get absorbed into whatever it is, even if I've already seen it, and even though it's a bit of a, I would argue it's a bit of a dark comedy about these people, and their I guess trials and tribulations of life. It's always been of comfort. It always feels great to, I guess, watch others suffer, if you will.
I was just gonna say, like, it feels like, like it's nice when you can see, oh, well, my life's not doing great, but their life is clearly worse
At
right
least
now.
I'm not George.
Exactly. And I gotta say, if I was in an apocalyptic time, and I'm hating on life a little, or I'm just not loving what our current situation is, Seinfeld might be the savior in reminding me, well, it could always be worse, right?
It could always be worse.
I could always be George.
Yeah.
So
or you'll just at least laugh your troubles away.
That's
Exactly.
it.
Mostly that would be that's what I would hope, is that I would just laugh them away, and then you know what, I'd probably get into Friends and understand the quote you mentioned before.
Yeah, you should
Anyways,
watch. Have you seen it? It's
I've
really
seen a
good.
few seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's
I
only
don't
like one of
clearly
the most famous theme songs
I
on the
know.
planet of all time.
Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah. And you know what? You never really think about the lyrics of the song because
Yeah.
you just kind of go through the motions of it. Throw me a curveball. I appreciate that. All right. Well, let's get into talking about this movie. As mentioned, we are talking about the Netflix film Leave the World Behind. The synopsis is: in this apocalyptic thriller from the award-winning writer and director Sam Esmail, who's known for Mr. Robot, Amanda, Academy Award winner Julia Roberts, and her husband Clay, played by Academy Award nominee Ethan Hawke, rent a luxurious home for a weekend with their kids, Archie, played by Charlie Evans, and Rose, played by Farrah McKenzie. Their vacation is soon upended when two strangers, GH, played by Academy Award winner Mahershala Ali, and his daughter Ruth, played by Mahala Harold, arrive in the night bearing news of a mysterious cyber attack and seeking refuge in the house they claim is theirs. The two families reckon with a looming disaster that grows more terrifying by the minute, forcing everyone to come to terms with their places in the collapsing world. Based on the National Book Award nominated novel by Rumen Alma, Leave the World Behind is produced by Esmil Corp, Red Om Films, and executive produced by Higher Ground Productions, which is actually the production company from Barack and Michelle Obama.
Oh,
So they produced this movie.
wow.
For those who didn't know that, I had read a while back that they had started a production company and that they were doing work with Netflix. So this is obviously one of their movies that they're producing with or distributing with Netflix. So this is pretty cool to see. And they apparently were huge fans of this book. It is going to be available on Netflix globally December. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about what worked and what didn't work for us with this. I'll just kind of kick things off if that's okay. Coming off of as a fan of Mr. Robot, which is what really drew me to want to cover this movie and talk about it and check it out. It has a lot to do with my love for that show and weirdness and the themes of classism, corporation, and you know, societal issues. And you know, this very inherently, either purposely or not, feels entirely connected to that world. And it goes even deeper with obviously the confines of a film, really pushing things like the sense of dread or the Hitchcockian vibe of just doom looming around the corner. And what's driving this tension is the cinematography, the sound design, the score, the editing. It's all of these things coming together to push the movie in a direction, and the confidence that this movie has to not give you everything and to make you wonder, and while focusing on the dynamics of the situation that these people are in. It's really interesting. It becomes less about the actual situation, but rather how the situation is affecting these people. So I think this was great. This was good.
I think a big part of that, Justin, for me at least, is in the first thing I noticed watching the movie. And I think it's the first thing that a lot of people will notice is the cinematography by Todd Campbell, who worked on Stranger Things. He worked with Esmail on Mr. Robot as well. Mm-hmm. And I think you know, the way the movie is shot and captured, the angles and the way the camera moves, it can be everything from unsettling to disorienting. I'd say maybe a little later in the film, a little distracting, and everything in between. And I think that does help for I'd say the majority of the movie to kind of bring you in, to keep you in and locked in and sort of weaving from moment to moment. I think the way that characters are framed gives very classic thriller vibes. I think very Hitchcockian, right? Like the slow zoom-ins or medium speed zoom-ins on characters' faces as they're coming to a realization of something. I was just like, how old is this movie, right? Like, so I think there's some interesting things, and I also like how the camera will flow between conversations with characters, even through multiple levels of the house, right? I think there's moments where the camera doesn't break and you literally see the floorboards as you pass by. And there's a really, I think where it really caught me was a combination of the cinematography and the audio design, where there's a very early moment where they're driving towards the house, and they go from moment to moment with each character, and it almost feels as though you're not only in that character's space, but you're getting a sense of like you're in their world for the brief moment, and then it goes to the next character, and then you're in their world. And it's this really interesting thing that I haven't seen in most films that I think helps to emphasize the concept of, you know, leaving your world behind, right? And very much kind of showing the separation of these characters.
And I think, you know, on your point, Nate, the way the camera is used to keep you kind of guessing where you're going, what's going to be around a corner, what's going to be, you know, on this next floor as you're traveling from this house from level to level. It's that sense of wondering what is going to happen next. What am I going to see next? That even you touched on, Justin, that I think really does help start to create the sense of this growing doom, this growing concern that the movie does a really, really excellent job of creating throughout. And then I think another element on top of the unbelievable camera work, like I was blown away by that, but I think the music choices and the way music is used and the way it's cut out suddenly, and they play with it in really fun ways throughout the movie. There's one part where there's this really terrifying music playing as they're driving the car, and as they turn off the car, the music stops as if they're listening to that music in the car. And clearly they wouldn't be driving around listening to like this ominous soundtrack, but it was just such a fun use of sound in the moment to sort of go, oh, okay, now we're at this next moment and what's going to happen now. And so throughout the movie, they just use it so well, and it does such a powerful job. Like I was sinking deeper and deeper into my seat as these moments built and built and built. And I might talk a little bit about later on how some of these moments are interrupted, unfortunately for me, but the music itself being such an awesome instrument.
Yeah, Hitchcockian is such a poignant term because it does find that balance of incredible camera work, sound design, and then editing. Like the editing on this from Lisa Lisick is spot on. Like you pointed out, Kevin, just you build, and then suddenly it's just cut, right? Like I think that's done so intentional, such a great way to leverage and hone the craft of cinematography and sound design and editing to really tell this story in a very impactful way.
And the filmmakers are blessed here with an absolutely incredible cast that I think does a really wonderful job. I mean, when Julia Roberts can make you like dislike her character,
what
you know, that's like wow, like she's
you don't know if you like her or you hate her, right?
It's very interesting. And then I thought it was a really fun relationship. The dichotomy, the differences between her and her husband, played by Ethan Hawke, really well. He's really charming, and you really enjoy him. You get two pretty darn good kid performances or younger actor performances. I mean, when you're on screen with, you know, Academy Award winners, you know, to even be able to keep up with them is a testament to their acting prowess. And then you got Mahershala, who's just like the guy can't do anything wrong, and so it's always a treat to see him.
Yeah, I think the majority of this cast was excellent. I think the youngest actors, you know, I don't think it's their own fault. Farrah McKenzie and Charlie Evans play Rose and Archie Sanford, and I don't think that it's their fault. I don't think they were given enough to do. If I'm kind of jumping in there, I think I just feel like they could have been a little more fleshed out. I can talk about that later, but I do want to just quickly shout out Myha'la Herrold as Ruth Scott. I think she might have been my favorite performance in the movie. I think her character, for me at least, I thought showed the most amount of growth throughout the film. And like you were saying, Kevin, like, I mean, to just even be on screen with, you know, Julia Roberts and Mahershala Ali and Ethan Hawke, but not only just to be on screen with them, but to be able to hold your own and really come back at them. And especially with some of the sort of confrontational stuff that Ruth and Amanda have together. I think she did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I think that like the weight of this movie is really on Julia Roberts and Mahershala. They sort of serve as sort of the polar opposites that need to find a balance between their sort of understanding of the situation. And I think they start to very much share in their experiences that they have more in common than not. And I think the same is to be said about Ruth, Mahala's character as well, who very much seems to challenge Amanda in a lot of ways, and how to kind of look at life, which I think is just there's just such a beauty in all of that, in how these people are sort of forced to be in this situation and live under this house, but they're respectfully learning more about themselves through that. And I think each of these actors, they brought such great acting chops to this, and really you know became these characters in a lot of ways. And I enjoyed the performances by far. Like, I think they're some of the best.
Yeah, and I think just on a story standpoint, I mean, you already mentioned Hitchcock. I also think Twilight Zone. I
Yes.
definitely got Twilight Zone vibes, Black Mirror
Hmm.
vibes at times as well. But I think there's something that Sam Esmail does that just sort of there are aspects to this movie and to this story that feel very fresh and very different, obviously purposefully. And then there's some aspects that I think sort of fall in line with a little more traditional that maybe we'll talk about and disliked. But no, I think as far as sort of the entire concept of the movie, if you are a fan of Twilight Zone, if you're a fan of Black Mirror, of Mr. Robot, I think you're really gonna dig it.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think all of those are great examples of how this story kind of plays with the same sort of tropes and that mystery. And it's crazy because as much as you as a viewer are so enamored with what is going on, it's really about these people, right?
Mhm.
It's really about these people in this situation that is the heart of the story, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that's what I really appreciated about it. It's about their dynamic and how they need to cope with this situation. And you know that's what I thought was really interesting. And I think you're right, Nate. Like, Sam Esmail has done such a great job with kind of playing with those themes in something like Mr. Robot, that, again, as I said at the top here, it just this inherently feels like it's in the same world in,
Right.
in,
You
a-
were
in a
you were
lot of
actually
ways.
we were talking offline and you were saying that there are Easter eggs in the movie that
If
I
you're a
didn't
Mr.
catch
Yeah, if you're a
that are
Mr.
Mr.
Robot
Robot.
fan, look for them, because you'll
So
you'll find
cool.
them. And like, to me, that just adds another layer. Like,
Yeah,
they're
it
probably
elevates it.
just Easter eggs, but at the end of the day, given if you have watched Mr. Robot, it might change the perspective of how you looked at it. Because once I found the first, or saw the first Easter egg,
Yeah,
then I started to think Mr. Robot and understanding what this is really about,
good
and
work.
how
Yeah,
I
that's
could
cool.
talk about. So, yeah.
See, and just you mentioned that these characters and learning more about them and seeing them having to cope in this world was an element you like the most. And for me, that actually is part of something that didn't work for the movie for me. As much as I can understand that the characters are such an integral part of this movie, I think what this movie does so well is how it builds tension, how it builds up this element of, it's really like a horror movie in many ways, not your traditional horror
Mhm.
movie, but that sense of incoming doom, and what is it, and what's happening, and what's going to happen next. And I think this movie does such an incredible job as it leads you in from this bright, cheerful, happy beginning, and just starts building layer upon layer of like, oh my God, what's going on here? And it would go for 15-20 minutes, and you're going, holy shit, I'm terrified, what's going on, and then it would suddenly just ease off a bit and slow down and spend some time with these characters. And then it would start back up, and it would go and it would go. And I'd be like, yes, this is unbelievable. And then they'd stop. There's one in particular towards the end of the film where it's like right in the middle of this like 40 minutes of like, I think what this movie really could have done, and I know we say it so often, trim off some time, make it a bit shorter, but I honestly think if you cut 20 minutes from this movie, you make it just a pulse
2 hours.
pounding
Yeah.
nonstop 2 hours of just like, holy
What's
cow, holy
happening?
cow, holy cow, holy
Mm.
cow, holy cow. Like, I almost liken it to wrestling a little, in that like you can build one of two types of matches. You can build a 40-minute masterpiece, and the skills that are involved there is you can't have a crowd cheering and screaming for 40 straight minutes. You'll burn them out. So you give them a big spot, and you give them time to come down. You give them a bigger spot, they go crazy, then you let them slow down, and then you build up to your final and it's over. Or you have 15-minute high flyer, high fast paced, go, go, go from bell to bell matches that are just nonstop movement, nonstop crazy, and it's just a barn burner from start to finish. And I would have almost preferred that here. I would have preferred, once that tension starts coming in, right until that final shot, that final moment, if you just built up to it and then eased off. I just think it would have worked a bit better for me. That was my biggest disappointment, is that it slowed down too often. It let me get my heart rate back down to normal. It let me sort of get comfortable, and then it had to work to get me back up to that pulse pounding, sense of fear and dread again. So that was my one grievance that I had with the film.
I feel like that's what worked for me the most, is how they built that and then kind of sucked the air out of the moment. It kind of it worked in a way that kind of enhances what they're going through, this sense of panic and dread, and then something kind of eases them. But I get what you're saying. I think that sort of roller coaster ride of tension and whatnot might feel a little jarring for some.
Well, it just mean, like, do you really think that in the middle of, like, the worst few days of your life, and like the horrific thing is that you've seen, and the horrible things that are going on, and you're worried about this and you're worried about that and you're worried about this, but why don't we stop and have a 15-minute conversation about the shitty things in the world that are going on, and darn gosh gee, isn't that, no man, focus on the crazy shit going around you. Nobody's gonna stop and have like a heart-to-heart talk, and you know what, I actually respect you now. Like, no man, I don't got time for that. The world is crumbling around me.
But I think that's the beauty of the situation, is that that pending doom, that threat, that panic is what's allowing them to actually bond, right? Because at the end of the day, when we are introduced to these characters, they're at such opposite ends. And by the end of it, based on this situation and what they've gone through, they're closer together than they are when they started at the beginning. So I think that, again, I think it was obviously purposeful to do it that way, but I think that changes the tone of the movie by focusing obviously on that intense thriller aspect of what is this threat, and focusing on that, right? Because you do get some really great moments, and then to your point, you pull back from them, and then there's these more character focused moments, and then you go back to intense moments, and you go back to character moments. But it's crazy to think about how each of those intense moments influences the characters along the way as they develop through this movie. So like you're saying, if it didn't work for you, I think for some it probably will be the same. It'll feel like a bit of a rocky roller coaster moving through those motions. But continuing that dialogue of what didn't work, Nate, you were mentioning before, there were some things that didn't necessarily vibe for you. What were those things?
Yeah, I think again, I brought up the concept, or the aspect of like Esmail delivering a very fresh aspect to this, like he did with Mr. Robot. And I just feel, though, that unfortunately it doesn't avoid I think a really big sin when it comes to thrillers or mystery rabbit hole style stories, where in that, like, they have a certain character who they keep hinting knows more than they let on, and then they don't unfortunately, they don't practically justify why that character withheld that information, right? Which leads me to believe that it's solely for the purpose of building that suspense and allowing the story to move forward, which that's totally fair. Like, that's fine, but it felt too synthetic for me, right? And it kind of took me out in a similar way that when we talk about it comes up a lot, but Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and the idea that the first half of that movie is a character just withholding that information, that if they had just given that information, we might have gotten a much more natural and dynamic story. And I think that, if it was part of a larger message, maybe I didn't pick up on it, the idea of that character withholding the information. But I don't think that's the case, because the messaging in the movie is pretty upfront, right? Like, there's some really great messaging on the reliance of technology, the division of cultures, a focus on racism and prejudice, and the dysfunction, classism, dysfunctionality of modern society. Like, there's all these messages that are very clearly painted. I felt as though the decision that the one decision that was, to withhold this information from this character just felt like it was in purpose to the story. And again, I'm not a writer, so like I'm not gonna be saying I could do a better job. But to me, it took me out of it a little bit, because I was just like, why? What's the purpose of doing that?
I think there's already so much of a mystery going on, and because you spend so much time locked within this house and have no clue what's going on in the outside world, there's already so much mystery that the one you're talking about, that they sort of loop along the whole movie until you finally go, oh well, yeah, that what really wasn't that much of a surprise. Why wouldn't you just sort of share
wouldn't you
that
just tell
so that
us? Yeah.
everyone's on the same page? And it was a mystery for the sake of a mystery, instead of enriching the story or leading to a payoff that went somewhere. Considering there's so much other stuff going on already, it did feel very unnecessary.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I think I understood at least why that was withheld, because it was clear that there was a sense of not wanting to panic, not wanting to jump to conclusions without understanding the full scope of what was going on. And I think as that character kind of unravels and begins to explore that, they start to realize this is something that you have to panic about. And I think it's clear that that kind of unravels itself throughout. But again, it could be like you guys are saying.
That's a great
it could
explanation.
Be but
Yeah.
that's at least what I took away from
Okay,
it, right?
good.
Because at least in regards to both Amanda and GH, they have families.
Mhm.
They have people that they don't want to freak out and necessarily go to extremes, so they're downplaying and they are trying to figure out and get more information. And that's really the biggest thing too, is like another big part of this is misinformation.
Mhm.
Right, like this story is like they don't have all the pieces, right, because
Mhm.
information is being concealed in a lot of ways, because they have no access to it, right, because of a massive cyber attack. So it's like there's a lot there in regards to that. But I guess what it really comes down to for myself, as one thing that didn't work, is that maybe there's just a lot of things in this pot that are working together that may not necessarily land or stick on any one thing. There, a lot of it might be more subtext to a larger story rather than it being a focus. So because to your point, it's like, what do you need to focus on in regards to the elements that are at play in this story? I'm doing my best to describe
It's
things
tough to
without
talk about it without spoiling it,
spoilers,
for sure.
for sure.
100%.
But
Yeah.
I do think, like, again, it didn't hinder my experience, but it was
Sure.
just something that I noticed. And as you move through that, it's just, there's another layer, there's another element, there's another thing that's at play here. And it's really just kind of keeping intact all of that.
There's so many messages. Could they have maybe focused on a few less, and maybe that would have made it, they would have focused on it more,
and then the others would
few
be
more
lifted, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I get you. And there's some things that really work well in a more subtle way, like you talked about the prejudice and the racism and this idea
Mhm.
of trusting people and looking at how people look at, like, I think another great example, and we didn't even talk about him, was Kevin Bacon's role
Oh,
in
yeah.
this movie. And I think he exemplifies everything that is conspiracies theory, right? So like,
Mhm.
he's literally he's the embodiment of it. And as his role in the movie is surprising, but at the end of the day, it's very fitting based in the context of the story, of how we see things. So
Yeah, it was great to see him and his brother on screen at the same time.
him and his brother.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you think
I
Ethan
know.
Hawke and him look alike?
They
They're
look-
similar.
Are you
I can
kidding
see
me?
it. Yeah,
I think they
can
look
definitely
alike.
see it.
They
Especially
probably
with the
have played brothers.
bushy gray white beards. and,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, was there anything else that you guys had to share in terms of thoughts or what?
I think the only other thing I would just kind of circle back to, just in regards to the cast, and again, I don't think it's their faults. I think there's nothing wrong with their performances. It's just the brother and sister felt very one note. They felt like much like the idea of this character withholding information to service sort of the mystery for mystery's sake. This was very much like the brother and sister being brother and sister, and like they've got sort of one thing on their minds at any given time. And it just, for a movie that's trying to sort of break the mold of the genre, right? Like we've got like more focused on a family, whereas a lot of movies in this genre, in this sort of subgenre or thriller genre of world situation, we would be seeing a
Apocalyptic, yeah.
massive cast, right, and jumping between multiple families. But here we're only really focused on two, and I think that's great. They're breaking the mold there. But with these two, I felt like there could have been a little bit more. It's just something dynamic for them. I don't think it's them. I think it was the writing for them more than anything that kind of just bothered me a little bit. But that would be the only other thing that didn't work.
Look at me. I'm like going to come up with points to defend. I think
Well, yeah.
I think in a lot of ways they were representative of innocence, right? In a lot of ways. Like they kind of symbolize that, but
Nice.
I don't know. Kev, how about you?
I just think, they were very representative of the youths of this time and their fixation on screens and the kind of emptiness that their life has without those screens. And I think also sometimes you can make kids be too smart for their own good or too aware of things that they would just have no clue about. And I think it's really well explained why the kids are behaving the way they are, simply based on, the way the adults are, the adults are talking, kids, you just go to the other room and don't worry about it, and so I think it was them being shielded from the truth that led to them not really reacting any more than they did on screen.
I guess I'm just more hopeful for a world where children aren't hollow, but I guess you're trying to say that there very much are kids out there that are just like that.
The iPad generation, baby.
Oh no.
Yeah, screen driven generation. I totally agree with what you're saying there, Kevin. I think that again, they sort of symbolize a sense of innocence and vulnerability. And even though they're so attached to their screens, their parents are trying to preserve and keep what innocence they can and not freak them out and so on. So, I think the only of the kids, you talked about Rose and Archie. Let's not forget that Ruth is also one of those kids, is older, but she wants the honest truth, right? And I think she's very much someone who symbolizes in a different way from Archie and Rose, seeking that truth and finding what's really going on. So I think those kids in relation to Ruth are supposed to kind of show that dichotomy of generational differences between how people are in this time with technology and stuff like that, because I do think that again she's probably older than the oldest, which is Archie, but I don't think it's by much, right? So yeah.
Well, I mean, speaking of being we're of a generation where we now rely on our screens as much as the kiddos do. And have you ever felt more represented on screen than Ethan Hawke saying, I rely on GPS and Google, I'm a useless man? And it's like, damn,
that is Nate.
If I was in that situation, that might be true.
Yeah. Kevin and I have been driving around recently, just kind of, going buying Lorcana cards. And yeah, there have been moments where I'm amazed at his ability to navigate even without a GPS. I'm blown away.
Yeah, but I've told you the same thing. Like we're both Kevin and I are from the same generation where we didn't have GPS systems. We remember things based on that. Like we both could probably get around Toronto and as well as
excellent.
Our
so you just both take
towns.
care of me. That's perfect. Amazing.
Yeah, we are your shepherd.
What's
you are the
difference between all that's already happening?
Exactly. All right. Well, with that said, I think it's time that we wrap up this review with our final thoughts and our score, which will be out of 1 to 5 Airbnb listings. Kev, I'll start with you.
Right off the bat, I really enjoyed a lot of what the filmmakers did here. I think there's just so much that works with the film from a cinematography and filming perspective. It just looks really cool, and in conjunction with the music, it just goes such a long way to creating these dreadful scenarios and scenes and moments. And honestly, I can't remember the last time I've been so tense watching a movie. I generally don't watch thrillers and movies of that ilk. And so for me, it was very much out of my comfort zone. And this movie did a terrific job of like pushing me further and further out of my comfort zone. And I think what disappointed me the most was when they brought me back and I felt safe. There's literally a moment at like the exact halfway point of this film where we were able to pause for a second, go to the washroom, and not feel like we were breaking up the build of anything important in the movie. Whereas, like I mentioned earlier, had they kept this tension going, I would have held it into the end. It wouldn't have mattered because I wouldn't have wanted that sort of suspense and that build to be broken. And so I think the fact that it's based on a book, maybe these more intimate character studies work better in book form than they did in the movie, at least for me as I was viewing it. That said, that can't take away too much from what was honestly just like, I was ready to go to bed, you know, with sweaty pits and just like a fear of the world ending. And you know, and I think other than those breaks in that suspense that the movie unfortunately had, I think it did a really good job, and it made you think about how you live your life in this day and age, and what you would do if you were in this situation, and how, you know, it was like, shit, we should really like get some canned goods and some cases of water in the basement just in case shit goes down, because what would we do, you know? And so I think from that perspective alone, the movie does a really, really good job of making you think, just like, what if? And again, great acting performances all around that really sort of bring home this, you're on this journey with these people and you just want them to get through it as much as you would your own family. And again, you wonder, what would I do in this situation? And for that alone, man, I wish I could give it somewhere in between these, but we don't do that here on the Geekcentric podcast. I can't quite give it a 4, unfortunately. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 Airbnb listings.
Nice.
All right, Nate, how about yourself?
Well, I think the first thing I would do is I would come over to Well, I'd probably pick you up, Justin, get your whole family, and then we would head over to Kevin's. And then I'm thinking we find like a Costco. Like, I think we find the nearest Costco, sneak in. Obviously, no one's there, right? And then we lock it down ourselves. And I think we just bunker there. I think that's probably right. Costco's got a lot of things.
I think everybody is going to Costco. Unfortunately, that's everybody's go-to. So you got to get there right away. Right away. You got to have a buddy that tips you off and says something might be going down.
Yes, 100%. I'll already be there eating the samples. I think this was a good this was a good movie for me. I don't think it's on the same level as something like Don't Look Up, which is just kind of an interesting sort of, you know, when you compare the two. I think it does a better job with the subject matter and the genre than like most of the recent M. Night Shyamalan projects, which again, I think there's some similarities that you can look at between these.
This is The Happening if it was good.
There you go. I love that.
If the trees didn't do it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it still might have been the trees. You never know. But I think there are some narrative and character decisions that just fell a little too close to the sort of the, I guess, what you would call like safe, traditional thriller aspects that for me, it was a little frustrating because, again, the story being told, they're doing so many fresh things, right? They're focusing on just two families instead of, the entire world. I think the messages that it's trying to convey are very valid and very timely, unfortunately. And I think I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the majority of the characters, the moments, the music. I just think that music and the fanciful, unsettling cinematography and those performances could only do so much to draw me in, while trying to distract me from, again, some of the issues that I had with some of the decisions narratively. So I think in comparison to the freshness, it's just like, again, some of those decisions were just too traditional. So I'm going to give Leave the World Behind a very solid 3.5 out of 5 Airbnb listings. I think, again, if you are a Sam Esmail fan, if you like Mr. Robot, if you liked Twilight Zone, if you enjoy Black Mirror, I think you'll enjoy this movie quite a bit.
I agree with you. I think Sam Esmail is he's such an introspective writer and director. He thinks very inwards about what the stories that he's telling, at least I find, to help talk about something that's bigger. And I honestly believe, like, Leave the World Behind, it's very gripping. It is that apocalyptic thriller that I think embodies the tension and brings that Hitchcockian style that I mentioned to the forefront to instill a sense of impending doom as the world teeters on the edge of catastrophe. I think the film's brilliance really does rely in its narrative, but also in the seamless synergy of cinematography, sound design, and editing, which collectively elevates the viewing experience, in my opinion. The cinematography, as you mentioned, was such a standout. The way it's, it moves, and how it can go from a very fluid motion to being locked off and swiveling and punching in zooms. It gave you a little bit of everything to help give you comfort while also driving tension. And the same goes for the sound design that was just so nerving, and it just, the music helped to elevate. This little piano riffs were incredible, but again, the editing is so pivotal. As someone who loves to edit things, I loved how this film was edited together and how it really does, again, drive that tension. But again, another element that I really enjoyed about this movie is the fact that even though that there is an impending apocalypse, its character driven exploration of human dynamics is so well done, given this extreme circumstance. It kind of dives into the complexities of relationships and understanding people, making it more than just a typical disaster movie or a typical apocalyptic film. It's about coming together in a lot of ways, and I think that helps to really do that. And this is all exemplified by the cast, as we mentioned. The entire cast did such a great job. So I wouldn't say that this is a triumph of a movie, but I did enjoy how the stylistic choices, from cinematography to editing to sound design to even just the way the story was fabricated, it all comes together in such a suspenseful, top-notch film that I think really does show some technical capabilities of how you can drive tension and create tension through the cinematic space. And again, a lot of it does feel like it is riffing on that Hitchcockian style and bringing that to the forefront, to kind of almost go back to a classic tradition with a modern touch. So I'm going to be giving this movie a 4 out of 5 Airbnb rentals as well. Well, that is it for our spoiler-free review for Leave the World Behind. Again, hitting Netflix December 8th, so you'll be able to check it out. And hey, if you check it out and you want to let us know what you think, and if we're wrong, well, you can let us know by reaching out to us via email at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at geekcentricyt, or formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. Or you can reach out to us on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Keep in mind, we have a ton of great episodes out now for you to enjoy, including our spoiler-free reviews for The Boy and the Heron, our spoiler-free review for Disney's Wish, as well as our spoiler-free review for the Netflix series Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. We also have our spoiler-filled review for Marvel Studios' The Marvels. And we also have a ton of interviews out right now, including our interview with Alan Tudyk, the voice of Valentino from Disney's Wish. Nate had the chance to sit down with him here in Toronto. I also had an interview with the director, Fawn Verthorn, and producer Peter Delvecco of Disney's Wish. Those are available both on podcast feeds and on youtube.com/geekcentric, which will also be the house of upcoming interviews. We got a lot of interviews coming up. We got more reviews coming up. December is a wild and busy month. A lot of people are slowing down. I think we're going to be picking up for the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. And hey, if you wouldn't mind, if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoy what we're doing, feel free to give us a review. 5 stars is the best way. It's the best gift you can give us. It's like sharing a house with us during an apocalyptic cyber attack. It's so great. We appreciate you. But until next time, Kevin, Nate, thank you for joining me for this spoiler-free review. And as we say,
Love ya.
Get home safe, guys, and stay there.
Peace.